Hi, my name is Charles Malki, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants and author of Saving the World with the Home Garden. And today I'm being interviewed by my newest friend and Dr. Lori Myren-Manbeck, who is also the author of You Can Save the World. In fact, you're the only one who can. And in her book, she teaches well over a dozen different ways that all of us can make conscious decisions in our daily behavior that'll make a huge positive impact on the overall health of our planet. And these lessons include, your clothing choices, the food that you choose to eat, as well as lifestyle tips. And I highly recommend her book, and that link I'm going to put down below in the video description as well as in the comments below. But also you can watch this entire podcast lesson on her YouTube channel, which is called Inclusivi-TEE. And I recommend that you go check that out. And please support her channel by subscribing. It's free to join. And also don't forget to hit the push bell notification so you get informed of all of her educational content as soon as it becomes made available. So please enjoy. This is part 1 of 2 of our podcast interview. Enjoy.
If she's a mountain, then you're an ocean.
Hi, everybody. This is Lori, and I am the founder and CEO of Inclusivi-TEE, which is a company devoted to kindness, justice, and sustainability. And this is our podcast. Our podcast partners are Alliance for Sustainability, a nonprofit that works to create a sustainable world. And the goals of this podcast are talking about creativity and kindness and justice and equity, all of which are part of sustainability. So today I'm just thrilled to have on the podcast Charles Malki. And I'm going to read, Charles, if it's okay, I'm going to read your bio because I want to make sure that I cover everything because you are really quite impressive. So
thank you.
Charles is a biologist, attorney, inventor, entrepreneur, and author of Saving the World with the Home Garden. I love the title, Charles. He is published in the Journal of Surgical Research and American Federation of Medical Research and currently cooperates a garden-based company named Ivory Organics to help home gardeners and commercial orchards grow the most healthy and nutritious plants and trees. I've also heard that you love to teach, educating tens of thousands of people every day on America's leading garden product YouTube channel for the past several consecutive years with over 140,000 YouTube subscribers and over 13 million views. Wow. That's just amazing. So I'd like to now just say to you, thank you for being here.
Thank you so very much for having me and sharing your podcast stage with me. And if you also don't mind, I plan on sharing your podcast with my viewers, and I'd like to introduce you if I could just have a moment. So Dr. Lori Myren-Manbeck is a licensed clinical psychologist. She earned her PhD from the University of Rhode Island with a specialty in geriatrics. Lori feels honored to be allowed into people's lives at a time that they're reflecting on all that they have done and trying to find themselves in the midst of medical, emotional, and lifestyle changes. She said that she never expected to open a business, but in late 2016 realized that she had to do more to promote environmental and social justice. Inclusivi-TEE was born out of this need, and the company creates sustainable fashion, supports community organization, and hosts the Exclusive Talk Sustainability, a podcast about creativity, health, equality, and kindness. As Inclusivi-TEE took shape, Lori became more and more interested in sustainable living and engaging conscious consumers. She decided to write You Can Save the World because she wanted to provide real simple tips anyone can follow to live a more sustainable life. Lori is already planning the second volume as well as a companion book on self-care. And again, thank you, Dr. Lori, for having me here on your podcast stage.
So, Charles, I always like to start out these podcasts by sort of asking for some background. And I like to start with as a child. So now you are an expert in organic gardening and are passionate about it. And I want to hear about all those passions. But as a child, When did you first start caring about this stuff, or was this just something that was always in your life? Tell us a little bit about that history.
So the gardening bug, if I can so call it, and the passion started very young, at a very young age. I'd say between 5-6 years of age, and watching mom plant. And I know you and I had a talk earlier where you said when you're in like kindergarten, first grade, and you sprout those beans in a cup. And for those teachers that are also out there, that has such a huge impact. I remember even actually preschool. I know some people, don't think you can remember that far back, but I remember also planting a pumpkin at school and then taking it home and then reaping the benefits of harvesting pumpkins. But my earliest memories is actually watching mom plant tomatoes and taking cuttings from the fig tree that we had in the backyard, using them for stakes for the tomatoes. And by the end of the season, having like too many fig trees now in the backyard because all the cuttings that she took off the tree all grew into trees, and now we've got too many plants. And just watching, the abundance and the yield and the beauty in life that can be accomplished in a home garden. And then also the passion also, that I feel like my mom had, she inherited it from grandpa. And grandpa spends like 8 to 10 hours a day, which is my personal dream, is to just like wake up and then just go gardening until sunset, and I hope one day to be in that place. But as long as I can remember, grandpa, spent at least 10, if not 20, 30 years waking up and gardening until sunset. And I feel like most of us, if we go back 50 to not even 100 years, but closer to 50 years ago, most of us were farmers by necessity. We lived on larger lots and we grew oranges, especially if you're down here in Southern California. You wouldn't live on a 5,000 square foot lot. You'd live on acres, and you would have your oranges or your lemons or your grapefruit, or you'd be harvesting, and raising chickens and goats and sheep, and people traded, and you didn't need much money in order to, be successful. And now we've all become specialists at different things in work, nothing related to the garden and nothing related to nutrition and health. And so, I mean, that passion started at a young age, and with it, I took it into, believing that my purpose was life. And I got a degree in biology with a focus on becoming a doctor. And most of my courses were all pre-med driven. And I did years in cardiothoracic surgery research, and I published in those national journals, of research that you mentioned earlier. And I felt like there's nothing greater than being able to save a life and to understand life. And then life took me on a detour, and I ended up in law school, and I finished law school, and then ended up opening a practice in Florida. Left Los Angeles and opened a practice in Florida for almost 10 years, and helped over 300 clients. And as soon as I started law school, I immediately fell in love also with the idea of, how can you function? How can you get in your car? How can you get married? How can you enter a restaurant without knowing the law? There's laws around us in everything that we do. How can you live without knowing the laws? How can your taxes, your income, like everything's impacted by the law. And I'm like, this is mind blowing. Like, there's so much information, and I loved it. And with it, I helped over 300 clients in Florida before the need and the desire to come back to Los Angeles, and being closer to family and friends. And I started a family there, and I wanted to bring them closer to what I had growing up, and start the curve all over again. And then started in real estate, but it was around that time, and with my life experiences and watching the ups and downs that happen on average every 10, 15 years, not usually 20, but there's good times and bad times in any economy. And to have a life that was so tied into real estate, I'm like, and having helped hundreds of people in Florida during the foreclosure and those bad times that happened, I knew there had to be something more that I can do. And that's when I feel like I truly got inspired, whether it be fate or God or destiny or whatever. But it was in me always, but it wasn't born until I came back to LA, and then continued teaching, by the way, teaching the local community, and getting into more people's backyards and helping people grow. And with it, creating friendships That's when I got inspired. And that's when Ivory Organics was born. And I remember, I'll tell you exactly, there was a lady's orange tree that was suffering third-degree burns again, as we discussed in an earlier podcast. And the tree, basically, the bark was cracking, the plant was barely fruiting, and I knew whitewash could help it, but both of us didn't want to put paint on the tree because paint's going to fall off the tree and contaminate the garden soil for a very long time, as paint's designed to last 100 or more years. And it's only going to be on the plant for about 1 or 2 years. As the plant grows, it's all going to end up in your soil forever. So that's when Ivory Organics was born, is creating a whitewash that was organic, all natural, and also infuses these oils, which is similar to a research project I did 20 to 25 years ago, where we encapsulated antibiotics in people's bodies using lipids that would break down slowly over time and offer antibiotic protection to the person for several days, if not weeks, whereas antibiotics only last hours. So the fact you can encapsulate them, and as they break down, offer effective benefits. The oils in the Ivory Organics organic products that are also OMRI listed. I think this is the first time we show the product, but this here is our first of now a dozen products that are offered by Ivory Organics that are, again, all organic and natural, effective, made in USA product. But it's OMRI listed also for organic gardening, protects your plants from damaging summer sunburn in the summer, damaging winter sun scald, insects, and rodents. And it was from there that the curve began. And I started teaching now on YouTube starting in 2016 was the first educational video I did. And within 2 years, we're the #1 garden product YouTube channel with more followers, more subscribers, more views than any of the other gardening products in the country. And right now we're experiencing, I think we're a little over 140,000 subscribers. We just crossed the 13 million view mile mark. And it's just been fun helping people and gaining their support around the country. And actually we're now in 3 other countries around the world as well. Yeah.
That's incredible. So I want to comment on a couple things that you just said. One, anyone who's listening, because we also do this podcast, just audio. Anyone who's listening, Charles actually held up a small yellow can that is basically an organic paint that you can put on trees to help with sunburn. And Charles, before I spoke to you, I didn't realize that trees got sunburn. I should have thought about that, but it didn't occur to me. And so I love that this product is not bad for the soil. It's not bad for us. It's healthy for the tree. So I think it's wonderful. So that's what he was holding up a minute ago. I also just wanted to say that as I listened to you talk about your life, what I love is that I see really interwoven in all of these very different careers, this passion for helping. So this passion for creating something better. So whether it's being a doctor and helping people, or being a lawyer and helping people with their cases, or being this organic gardening guru who helps people create better gardens, better food, better earth for all of us. So what I like to look at is how these passions kind of weave through our lives in different directions. And I love that. And I think that that's, if you had to name and you had to describe what sort of the thread of all of this is for you, if you look back on it, how would you describe that?
I was thinking, as you're leading to that question, is it's got to be teaching. I love teaching. And as I started, I guess, with my mom and my grandfather, and my mom's still on earth, but grandpa's also every single day in my mind and in my heart. And every time I visit the garden, like I feel like I'm walking in his garden. So I just feel like through teaching, and if I can offer something to you that you take and integrate into your life, that hopefully I've become a part of your garden and a part of your world. And I feel like there's no greater impact than that. And something else that we do, I just got to plug it in, is, and I know I mentioned the fig trees, is every February, and this is now going to be our 4th year that we're doing this, and we anticipate now getting over 1,000 fig cuttings. And I know, again, in an earlier podcast we discussed this, but figs can be grown from seed, and the seeds are obviously our children. But by taking a fig cutting from a proven quality of fig, and I've done a lot of educational videos on figs because I think, for one, they're delicious and nutritious and healthy. There's a ton of health benefits for you as well. But figs can be green, they can be black, they can be brown. I've got a green variety with white stripes. There's also black varieties with yellow stripes. So they can be beautiful to look at. Like those are like variegated varieties. They can be beautiful. They're delicious, nutritious, and just a wonderful, easy to grow addition to your garden. They pretty much grow anywhere through the United States compared to, for example, growing citrus where you might have to like acclimate them indoors and then back outdoors in the spring. That figs can tolerate most, depending on the varieties. Also, there's some that are more cold tolerant for the the real hard freezing zones. But figs overall are one of the most durable, strongest plants to consider growing, and it's because of that we give away those fig cuttings from proven quality fig varieties. And now we've got close to 6 to 12 volunteer gardens where they give us, again, their black figs, their brown figs, their green figs, their Panache tiger figs, and so forth. And then we basically give them away for free or integrate them with the sale of some of our products, again, for free. And the goal is we want something from us to go into your garden and just to make us a part of your life and your world. And we hope that you grow success and happiness. And then I know that's going to be something we're going to lead to later, but this is part of the teaching that has to be done as well. Yeah.
So, Charles, looking back at that very young age where you sort of realized, oh my gosh, I love this. Like, this is a part of who I am. How did that impact your childhood?
I mean, it's only positive. And I know as a doctor, psychologist, that there's mental health and mental well-being that comes with satisfaction and getting the joy of growing and watching, something succeed. I know a lot of people have, maybe a dog as a companion pet, or a cat or a bird. And I want people to feel confident, because I've had a lot of pets. I've had dogs, chickens, birds, turtles, fish, so forth. You can see my fish over here. But my favorite pet are my plants, because plants do require food and water, and you give them a haircut when you prune them. And if you do it right, they'll reward you with more flowers and more fruit and more whatever it is that those plants are designed to contribute to your life. But when you do it, you get the satisfaction of watching the joy that plant and that life will give you. I know most people look at plants as plastic things that are in the ground, or and don't move and don't do anything, but they do so much, and they offer so much life. And something I just want to plug in real quick that comes to mind is an article I read just a few years ago. And I know there wasn't any research on this, I'd say 5 or even 10 years ago. This is a new concept, being that cities that have more trees have people that live longer and healthier, lower mortality rates than cities that don't have trees. And they've seen and they've done the research where, for example, and it happens here in LA all the time, where there's a diseased tree and then they'll cut them down, or they'll cut down all the trees on an entire block. But hopefully it's followed by new plantings. But there's some cities where they just took out the trees and didn't replant them, and they saw the health effects to the citizens. Yeah. And whether it be mental or visual or something, because plants are cleaning the air, they're adding additional oxygen into the air, they're doing a whole bunch. But there might be, and there's actually some research that's saying that there's also scents that are given off by the plants that go into our brain, go into our body, and cure diseases and improve our mood and bring happiness and joy. Why would you not want that? Why wouldn't you want that in your backyard and in your home and on your patio or wherever it is that you live? Like, plants are awesome, and we should all be integrating more of that into our lives.
Well, and there is, as you said, there's research that psychologically for us to go outside and be in nature is incredibly healing and good for us. Yeah. The other interesting thing that when you said that there's research or an indication that plants give out some kind of sense that we feel and that helps heal us, that makes a tremendous amount of sense if you realize, or if you know, that trees communicate with each other. So we know that trees, through their root systems, are talking to each other. And yep. I think that communication, if we can put that in our heads, that plants are communicating in some way to each other, to us, to the world around them.
Another thing I can add in regards to the communication is, if you can visualize a forest, for example, where there's a tree with these roots over here and another tree over here with its roots. And the tree could be, let's say, 100 feet tall with roots that maybe go 200 feet across, the forest floor. But even if these trees are 300, 400, 500 feet apart, there's still a communication happening between the roots, not just at the root level. What spans even farther than the roots are the mycorrhiza, which are the like hyphal roots of the mushrooms. So the mushrooms are the fruiting bodies that pop occasionally out of the ground, but year round, there's also the roots of these mycorrhiza, which are in a different kingdom of life altogether. They're not related to plants, not related to animals. There's this fungal classification of living things that are also embedded into basically the the topsoil layer around the planet. And these mycorrhiza, a single mushroom can have roots that span 1,000 feet. So imagine the tallest plant that's 100 feet with roots that maybe go at 200 feet or even 300 feet. But imagine that little mushroom has roots that go on 1,000. And it's those roots that now also offer all of the nutrients and the water from regions where maybe that tree is not standing, and pulls the water up from the rivers up to the trees 1,000 feet away. And in exchange, the trees are offering the sugars that through the process of photosynthesis is offering the sugars that it gives a little bit to the mushrooms in exchange for the minerals and water that the mycorrhiza, and that's the exchange and the communication that's happening, with all of the living plants, and then the under the ground mycorrhiza, network that's happening, and that communication with all the minerals and nutrients and water that's happening, 1,000 feet away. And that's like the amazing communication that, it's just phenomenal. And it's part of also the organic garden, which I don't know if we're going to get more into. But part of organic gardening is to preserve these networks and the life that lives within the soil, such as the beneficial earthworms and beneficial bacteria and the beneficial mycorrhiza that we just discussed about. And to feed that network organically, because if you do it synthetically or using chemicals, you're potentially harming, if not killing, that network, because you're using synthetic products that, as you also explain in your book, don't break down and don't contribute, any value to the overall network that would otherwise exist.
So, Charles, tell me, since you started talking about the organic gardening, tell me a little bit more about that, because that's I think that's just an important thing to know.
So we talked about, like, I'm gonna start with this and then lead to the next one. So we talked about the importance of whitewashing your plants, and that's what this can is. But we also came up with if you're going to feed your plants, there's the Ivory Organics all-purpose organic fertilizer, which has the NPK as you would expect, all your fertilizers to have. But what Ivory Organics did is take it another step forward. Why invent something that already exists? And we basically tried filling in a void in education, where plants need more than just NPK, it stands for the elements on the periodic table, nitrogen for plant growth, phosphorus for flowering and fruiting, and then potassium for root, disease resistance, and growth. So you got your NPK, but if you Google and research anywhere, what are the 6 macronutrients, meaning the nutrients plants need in abundance? And the answer is there's 6. Yet 90 to 100% of the products on the shelf only have 3. And it's like, why would you only give your plants 3 macronutrients when plants require 6? And what Ivory Organics has done is, if you take a look on the back, guaranteed analysis, is it includes also calcium, which you'll find in the cell walls of all the plants, magnesium, which you'll find in the heart of the chlorophyll molecule, and then sulfur, which is important for a lot of the enzymatic processes of the plant. So you got your NPK as well as calcium, magnesium, and sulfur, and together you got the 6 macronutrients that plants need, in addition to starting, we call it our 2021, but it's already available in a lot of stores, but also now includes azomite. Our super blend with azomite also includes crushed volcanic rock, which delivers a lot of the micronutrients plants also need. Again, important for a lot of the enzymatic processes to make sure the plant has everything it needs, just as we would take for our own health a multivitamin to make sure that we've got everything that we need for optimal health.
So it sounds like with organic gardening, the goal is to feed the plants all the things that they would get in nature. But
correct. But you're also not just feeding the plant. You got to also look at it as if you're feeding the soil network and the whole biology that exists below the plant, which is, again, including your earthworms, your beneficial bacteria, and the mycorrhizal network. And that once you're putting all of these organic ingredients into the soil, they're eating it up and they're returning the elements back into the soil to the benefit of the plant. So you got to look at it more as a cyclical thing rather than if you're buying synthetic, or some people call it chemical, but chemical is organic and synthetic. Chemical is the elements off the periodic table. So I prefer using the word synthetic products. The synthetic products will deliver the NPK, so you get your 3 macronutrients, but it also leaves a lot of salts behind in the soil, because usually the elements are tied in a salt form. And the other issue with also using the synthetic products is they've also got a lot of filler and a lot of, again, being synthetic man-made products that don't break down once they enter the soil, and once they eventually leach into your nearby lakes, rivers, and streams, and eventually the ocean that we all share. You got these products that aren't breaking down, and they're basically contaminating, polluting, rather than if you're using an organic product that is, again, ingredients that are derived from nature and then used in your garden to help benefit, your landscape and your plants. And if it does leach out into nature, it came from nature to begin with. Mm-hmm. So, and it's just a lot more softer, gentler, easier way of bringing the benefits without all that harm and side effects.
So it's really more feeding the soil and creating healthy soil.
Yes,
so that
it's all about the soil.
Grow. Yeah,
the organic gardener knows it's always about the soil.
Okay. So, as a child, besides, I have I have a lot more questions, but I have 2 specifically that I'm thinking about right now. One is, as a child, besides this, so besides your love of the earth and the plants and the gardening, what else were you interested in? What were your other passions?
So, hobbies, passions, obviously school was a big deal, and that's why I did as much schooling as I did. And truly grateful to it. So for those that are younger viewers, or even if you're older, I do encourage you to either stay in school or continuously educate yourself, which is something I do. I actually purposefully brought my half cup of milk over here. It's almond milk, by the way. But I brought my half cup to say my cup is always half empty. And today, the person that's adding more value to my life is Dr. Myren-Manbeck, who is extremely educated, extremely knowledgeable, and I've been learning a lot from you and your podcast and watching you and reading your book, and taking and absorbing a lot of that into my life. And one of the things in regards to connections I hope to make for you soon is a friend of mine that's here in Los Angeles who is of Chinese descent, and she's someone I met several years ago, and has also educated me, and has changed the shape and direction of our company, as we also now offer the option to buy a lot of our products without the cans and without the labels. And you can, if you've already got the can, why get a second can when I can just give you the contents for like 30-40% less? And it's like, oh, does it really make that much of a difference? But it does make a difference. By the time you manufacture it, wholesale, and retail it, like those costs end up in a significant savings. Mm-hmm. She said, the close neighbor, a couple blocks from me, and she's also an influencer, is that her village in like rural China creates less trash in a year. She's like, the amount of trash an average American makes in a single day is equivalent to the amount of trash they create in an entire year. And when you go to a fast food place, that's when I realized and saw the impact of how much trash. Like the next time you eat out, think about all the styrofoam packaging you get, the plastic utensils. Forget about just that plastic straw. That's just the icing on the cake of the trash. The styrofoam cup that they put your soft drink in. And you got, at the end of the day, like this much trash, and you get like this much food, but there's this much trash associated with consuming it. And imagine like that's happening about every like second or every 5 seconds at that one establishment. And then now multiply it going across America. And I know that she also shared a study similar to what you shared relating to our carbon footprint. And I know you educated a little bit on that in regards to, it's not sustainable, I guess, within the next 5, 10, 50 years. Yeah. We're going to end up destroying the planet. And I think she also came up with a research analysis which shows in like 5 or 10, 20 years, there's not going to be enough landfills to put this much trash away. And it's only in America that apparently is going off course in a direction faster in regards to creating trash, more so than a lot of the other countries around the world. Yet our population compared to the other countries is really teeny tiny. And it's amazing, like, how are we like doing this much damage compared to the billion populations that exist in several countries around the world, and with a lot less impact than what we're doing. That's like, when are we going to put on the brakes? When are we going to start healing instead of just continuously damaging? And this is something where I like to say, and I don't like getting in politics ever, but I always like saying, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or Democrat, but when you're doing something that's wrong, what would be wrong? Throwing plastics in the ocean would be wrong. Throwing a cigarette that breaks down over many years in the gutter where it's going to end up in the ocean would be wrong. It doesn't require politics, and something that, again, was another life-changing experience. I know I'm sharing so much with you today. Was reading another book called The Secret, and for those of you that haven't read it, I always highly recommend reading it. And again, it starts off in sciences, being laws of attraction, and how some people are attracted to each other immediately, and some people are repelled even though we haven't said a word. And it's like, what's happening, and why is it? And you can take a look at the periodic table. There's some elements that when you put them together, they explode, and other time, like, nothing happens. Like, why? And so, like, there's a science to it. And I think it's chapter 4 or 5. Again, it hit me like that hard. One of the top 2 paragraphs, and it said, law of gravity, if you jump off a roof, it doesn't matter if you're a good person or a bad person, you're going to break your legs. And so the point with that message is to just do what's right. Like, planting a plant makes sense. It's going to clean the air, purify, bring you joy and happiness as it grows. And if it's a fruiting tree, it's going to offer you fruit. More delicious, more nutritious than the best organic health food store that you can go to, because that was picked weeks ago and has been dying since they picked it for you weeks ago. Compared to, you're going to pick it that afternoon after it's been, ripening by the sunshine, and all of that life and all the nutrition and everything in it is at its peak. Again, compared to that store-bought organic, if you're buying organic fruit that's been dying. And there's just so much value in growing your own, and in taking care of your health, and in preserving our planet at the end of the day, and again, doing what's right. Don't jump off the roof. Stop doing what's wrong, and that is wrong. And that's why I say, like, it doesn't matter which side of politics you're on. Like, there's some things that are just like, it's wrong when you're throwing this much trash away that is never going to break down. Not in my lifetime, and maybe not in my kids' lifetime, but we still do it every day. And it's like, when do we make a difference?
What I love that you said earlier, Charles, is when you talked about what the thread was for you of these diverse careers. So, thinking about medical school, ended up as a lawyer, did real estate for a while, and now are an organic garden specialist. What you said is it's teaching. The teaching part of it is the thing that matters the most to me. And what I like about that is that I think that the solution for this is for each of us to keep educating ourselves about what we're doing and how we can do better. I think that we have to go into this, and I think you share my feeling that learning is so important, and we should every day be embracing new information and complex information and figuring out what it means. And I think that for me, researching the book on sustainable living was like, oh, okay, I knew parts of this already, but I didn't know all of it. And it didn't take that much to research it. And so one of the reasons I wrote the book was so that people would have, another source that they could go to for some simple tips. And it's why I want to write a second edition, because there is so much more.
There is.
But every piece of it is really simple. Every part of it is something that you can pretty easily implement. And I think it's the caring and it's the educational piece that matters so much.
It's simple, but the book also is very eye-opening as well in regards to, it gives lessons on what to eat, how to, when you dine, how to make it a more, effective and less impactful, to our planet, and including the clothes that we wear and the choices that we make when we buy. And a lot of your lessons, again, comes from that friend that I had a few years ago, but you've added so much more. Yeah, I know you use the word simple, but yeah, simple to adopt, but again, very eye-opening in regards to, you've given several dozens of ideas that if we just incorporated 1 or 5 or all of them, if you're like going to achieve the highest greatness, then what we should all be doing is eventually adopting all of these things in our restaurants that we, go to, and the clothes that we buy. they also need to adopt it, and they need to listen to what is best, not just for the bottom line, but what's best for the planet that we all share.
Yeah, agreed. One thing I wanted to say is that I think that's exactly it, that we have to do it ourselves, and then we have to really push the companies we support and the restaurants we support to allow us to bring our own containers for leftovers, because that's such a simple thing that never occurred to me. So I think it's things like that it's viewing everything you do through this lens of sustainability will make a difference. And so I'm thankful that I got the time to do the research, and I'm really excited about talking to you. So we've been talking for about half an hour, and we've decided that our podcasts really need to be about half an hour. So Charles, with your permission, I'm going to end this one, but then I'm going to start another one because I have many more questions for you. So I don't want to end it now, but I would like to take a break. So this is the end of our first podcast with Charles Malki, and we will be back for the second one we'll be back right away, but you probably won't see us right away. But please see the second one as well. All right. Thanks, everybody. This is Inclusivi-TEE Sustainability.
So I hope you've enjoyed this lesson with my newest friend, Dr. Lori Myren-Manbeck, and author of You Conceive the World and Factor, the Only One Who Can. And I'm putting that book link below this video description as well as in the comments below for your convenience. And secondly, do please take that 5 to 10 seconds to click the link as well to her YouTube channel and show your support by subscribing and hitting that push bell notification to stay informed to all of her educational content as soon as that becomes made available. If you've enjoyed this lesson, as always, please give us that thumbs up, and most importantly, share these lessons with your gardening friends and family. As always, keep growing with Ivory Organics, and wishing you all happy gardening.